Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. Welcome to this week's episode. My guest is Mike Stevens, advisor, mentor, consultant for startups and challenger brands. Mike was part of the founding team at Innocent Drinks and was with the brand for about 8 years. He then went on to found the natural confectionery company Peppersmith, which he sold in 2019 as part of his move from London to the South Coast. Mike is both passionate and very knowledgeable about direct consumer brands and has written a book being released next month in which he interviews the founders of several successful D2C brands and charts their stories and methods for success in what is an exciting but complex arena of business. There is so much to cover in this podcast around subjects like e-commerce, the benefits and challenges of going the retail route, as well as the future of D2C and how it's going to influence the way we interact with brands in the future. I hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome, Mike, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the podcast. I'm really interested to have a sort of an in-depth conversation with you about direct consumer brands and developing those businesses. But before we do that, I need to talk to you about your own entrepreneurial journey with Peppersmith. But for me, from looking at the background to you, it really did all start for you, it would appear, in the kind of consumable product world when you took a senior team role as one of the first senior team members at Innocent Drinks. So those must have been crazy times. So tell us a little bit about your experience at Innocent and what it taught you, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was just really lucky to get introduced to the Innocent guys back in the day when they were a scrappy little startup working out an industrial unit in southwest London. It was it was unglamorous as it sounds. My interview was round a plastic garden table in a meeting room in this slightly smelly weird little office. But that was great. I mean, that was what startups, I guess, were about. I mean, that Innocent were a startup before startups were a thing.
They were that one of those just starlet kind of brands that came from nowhere, and were one of the first to do that, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they did start at the same year as Google. So yeah. I mean, it's you put things in perspective. So they weren't the first company to come out of nowhere and be successful. But I joined Innocent when I was 25 or 26, okay. So I'd had like one or two jobs at university, but even in that time I was looking at I was really quite entrepreneurial minded. I was like, I should really do my own thing. Okay. And I got introduced to Innocent. I was lucky. So there was there's three founders at Innocent, John, Adam and Richard, who look them up if you don't already know them. Really really interesting and fantastic people to know. But really alongside them, who was he's outside the marketing world, he's quite unknown. He's a guy called Dan Germain, who is now he's one of the chief marketing people at Google. He works at Apple, but spent nearly longer than me at Innocent. He was there for nearly 20 years, and he was like their creative brand director. He was the famous Innocent voice. Yes. The kooky packaging was Richard, who's one of the founders, but also Dan. And I went to school with Dan, and so I knew him, and I knew what this weird little company called Innocent were doing. Dan's like this super clever chap who came from Cambridge, and he was working when he started helping the Innocent guys. He was their van driver.
Okay.
Start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. So, and he said to me, this is back at the end of 2000, it's like, Innocent, we've been going for a year or so, it's going quite well. We need someone to run our supply chain. It's like, you know a bit about supply chain. I did supply chain stuff at university. It's like, do you want to come and have a look? And so I was like, brilliant. And it just worked so well for me because I wanted to sort of look at the startup world, entrepreneurial world. Yeah. And I saw this business who were clearly already doing some great stuff. I was like, I should go there. If I can get a job there, I can learn how it's done. Yeah. I'll be there for 2 or 3 years, and I'll see how it's done, and then I'll go and do my own thing. Take all those learnings. And in the end, I was there for 8 years because little did I know that I had actually joined, one of the most iconic sort of startup brands from the last 20, 30, 40 years, and I learned so much there. Got to work with so many fantastic people, not only the founders, but other people in the business. And especially in the early days, it was full of very, I guess, young, talented, entrepreneurial minds. Yeah. So it was just a great place to be. And we had loads and loads of fun. Yeah. It was just brilliant. So I was there for 8 years, but it was always a matter of when, not if, that I broke away and did my own thing.
So do you think you're always destined to run your own business? Was that always an ambition from a young age?
Yeah, I'm not... It's funny when we're going to talk about the book that I've written in a minute, and most of the founders, they've always got this story. It's like, I was the guy who had the lemonade stand and was selling the things in the car park, or I had my own lawn mowing business. I don't know how much of that is manufactured. I always worked when I was a kid. Had paper rounds and did stuff. But in terms of that entrepreneurial thing where you create your own thing, that wasn't me until I was 18. And I got introduced by a friend so it was, what are they called? Not the pyramid schemes, the network schemes.
Pyramid selling.
Yeah, the Amway company, who sold house and things. And I was introduced then when I was about 18. And I did the bits, and I sold the pots and pans and the oven cleaners and stuff, and made a bit of money. But I really didn't like the system where you had to introduce more people and blah 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 and did all that stuff. But what they did, they introduced me to, I guess, lots of literature about entrepreneurialism and this way of thinking. And there was this book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and reading that at the age of 18, it just, all of a sudden everything made sense. It's like, you didn't have to be in a box. You could have your own ambitions. You could have your own control. And I'm quite a creative person as well. It's like, I can do something here. Wow. And then I went off to university. And the interesting thing I did at university is that I started doing engineering. I did maths and physics and stuff at school. It's like, I'm going to do engineering. And the reason I wanted to do engineering is because I can make things. I can change things. Yeah. I can make a real difference. And when I got there, it was two things. It was really, really hard. Engineering, an engineering degree is like a full-time job, so that was different, especially when I was looking at all the rest of my peers and
having fun.
It's like, ooh, have I chosen correctly here? I've chosen wisely. But the second thing I realised as well, the life of an engineer, of a traditional engineer, is you get put into a big business and you're a small cog in a big machine and you don't get paid that well for it. So after 6 months, I stopped engineering, jacked in the university for 6 months, and then I came back the next year to start doing a business degree. Okay. So it's like, this makes more sense to me. This is me. So I started doing business. So I did the business degree coming out. So I was already looking at can I do things? There was like new web businesses. Can I make a thing? But I knew nothing. I was really inexperienced. I was green. I didn't know how to do anything. I had some ideas. Most of them were rubbish. But so it was when I was introduced to Innocent. It's like, oh, this is just a place to learn. And it was a great place to learn. So I was there for 8 years. I headed up their supply chain for the first 6 years. And then I was asked to go up to Scandinavia to be the country manager to launch the brand up in Scandinavia. And that suited me, because what happens with these businesses, as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, they want more specialists in the different roles and the different functions. I'm rubbish at being a specialist. I'm a pure generalist. I like doing a bit of everything, which is why I love that young startup entrepreneur environment when everyone gets involved with everything and has to. You don't have a choice. Even if you're the supply chain guy, you're going to get involved with marketing and finance and get in the van and do some selling. You just have to do it all.
But that's true though. You got to know where you fit in life, don't you? Me, I love that energy for new business and those early years. But then when it grows and grows and grows, and you become more of the leader and you're less hands-on, that always feels less of me.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's a hard balance because you're almost punished by your success.
Yeah, but that's where you got to need to go. You've got to delegate. You've got to let go.
Yeah.
You've got to bring in those that are more skilled than you, because that's how you grow and that's how you succeed. And that's what I suppose I've done on my journey. But I've always found that difficult to do.
It's hard, but all things worth doing well, and they're hard and all that stuff. But I was lucky. So I had 2 years in Scandinavia being a general manager, which is which I still am now. Okay. So where as a general manager, it's a bit like being a founder, you have to look across all the different elements of the business. Yeah, you have to understand the sales and the marketing and the supply chain and how that impacts the P&L. Is there enough cash available? How do you manage your resources? How do you lead your team? All of that stuff. So that set me up really well because in 2009 I left along with another chap called Dan Shrimpton, and we founded Peppersmith. Okay. And Peppersmith, for those of you who haven't come across the brand, is a sort of good-for-you confectionery company, which is a bit of an oxymoron.
It is.
Sort of health and confectionery don't tend to go together. But the reason we got to Peppersmith and confectionery is because at Innocent, we're in this constant world of a brand that is natural, it's sustainable, it's good for you, and and it has a really powerful brand to sort of communicate those stories. Yeah. And those changes, so Innocent sort of led the way along with a few other brands, but you could just see those themes running across all food and drink, all the different categories, whether it's bread or crisps or milk or cereals, it was all changing in that direction. And then our insight was confectionery was still the old. It was still run as it was 50 years ago.
Sugary, bad for you, kind of like preservatives, all of that kind of stuff.
It's sort of high volume, low quality crap. That's not doing anyone any good. So we saw this opportunity. Like, look, if all these trends are shaking up every other category, why should confectionery be any different? Okay. So our big break, and really the reason we started, is we found this was 2009. So it was 13 years ago. We found a plastic-free chewing gum. Okay. Which is a thing now. It wasn't then. And the reason we sort of looked at plastic free is because we just want it to be more natural. Yeah. Chewing gum has got loads of weird chemicals in, and we saw the opportunity to have something that was just a bit more pure. And also, we didn't use sugar. We used this ingredient called xylitol, which is a natural sweetener, and it's got this amazing property where it's really good for your teeth. Okay. So it hasn't got the downsides of sugar, and it does your teeth really good. So all of a sudden, we had this natural product that was really good for you. Boom. So we've got a starting point. So that's where we launched the Peppersmith brand with this chewing gum product in 2009. And over the years, we sort of grew that business. Stayed in confectionery, but we had a mince range and a kids range and a sweets range, and did different things. And we grew that business over an 8-year period, and we got to a bit of an inflection point around 2016. Okay. Brexit happened. Yes. And we were importing a lot of the product, so our margins got absolutely screwed, and we went from a profitable business to a loss-making business overnight, pretty much.
So that was sort of 5-6 years into the journey?
5-6 years into the journey. And at that point, we'd also lost, we had a great growth story, and then we lost a bit of momentum. Yeah. We got into quite a few of the supermarkets. We were in Sainsbury's and Waitrose. We had Boots and WH Smiths, and I think Morrison's might have just been about to start. So quite successful, but at the same time, we'd also plateaued a little bit. Yeah. So we got sort of hit a ceiling. And then, so we'd hit a ceiling, so lost a bit of momentum, and then Brexit happened. Yeah. I was like, so what money, the business was set up to be profitable for the size it was, and then it wasn't. So it's like, so I spent probably 2 years fixing that. And at the same time as well, my co-founder, Dan, had also sort of stepped away from the business. Okay. He had gone back to Ireland with his wife. His wife was Irish. And the reason that happened is really because, we were an SME, we were a small business, and we had two sort of 30, 40-year-olds running, senior people running the business.
And it didn't need two of you.
It didn't need two of us, nor could it support two of us. Because we had the choice. It's like, do we pay ourselves, a decent salary to, pay the mortgage and support the family, or actually could pay one of us and take the rest of that cash and put it into marketing? Yeah. So we got to the point where Dan said, actually, I want to go back to Ireland anyway, so can I do that? I was like, let's. Okay.
How did that feel? Because that you start a business together, you founded it together. Obviously, you must have got on well when you were at Innocence together.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you hit a difficult point in the business journey, and you're left holding the reins.
Yeah, and it wasn't quite like that, because it wasn't an ultimatum. It was like, I'm off, so you deal with it.
It's your problem,
it was like, we went together. We decided about 6 months or a year before, it's actually probably doesn't need both of us. How do we do this?
Which one of us is it going to be?
Or do we both sort of step back a bit, and how do we do this? And it was only when Dan's wife got pregnant, said, look, we want to go back to Ireland.
Right. Family, Ireland.
It was like, okay, so the parts of the jigsaw started to come together.
Okay.
So Dan left, and then the Brexit happened, and then I had to spend a year or so just restructuring the business. All those horrible things you have to do, like put up prices and maybe restructure the team and think about how we operate. That was quite tough, but came out the other side. Got back into profitability. We can survive, but also the realization is if we were going to make any real impact as a brand on the market, on the category we're in, we're going to have some more funding. Okay. We're up against our competitors were Nestle and Mars and
basically been self-funded to that point.
We had angel investors, so we had some investment, but it was in terms of confectionery and even in terms of most food and drink brands, it was pittance.
Yeah,
it was enough to we did the
seed bootstrap.
We did the seed round.
Okay,
but we didn't do any more than that. So
wow, you got a long way then on seed funding.
We did get a long way on seed funding, but then we got to the point where so actually we're going to need to raise more money. And it was during that process where I guess raising money was possible, but there was lots of conditions on it. And the biggest one for me was, oh, Mike, this is your thing. I'm going to give you some money, but you're going to be in it for the next 7 or 8 years, and the next part of the journey. And I was, after doing sort of 8 years at Innocent and 8 years at Peppersmith, I was like, not sure I've got the appetite for that, especially because there's an uncertain future as well. And then during that process, one of the potential investors said, actually, we don't want to invest, but we're looking to acquire brands. Okay. So if you're open to that discussion, we can talk about selling the brand. And it wasn't something that we'd originally planned, but again, it just seems to be the right time. It's like, they were willing to take the brand on. They said they were going to put lots of money into it and grow it and stuff. I thought, well, that's quite exciting. That's a good legacy, isn't it? And also, it gave me the opportunity to step away and do something else. So after lots of discussions, there was, going through all the permutations and the options, we decided it was the best thing to do. And one of the things that also enabled us to do was move. So we moved from southwest London down to Poole, down to the coast.
Down to the south coast.
And for me, it was the next step. I do see sort of business cycles as like sort of 7 years. And when you get to the end of that 7, it's like the tour of duty. When you get to the end of that 7 years, decide, are you going to do another 7 years? Or are you going to do something else? And just to continue without a plan didn't seem that appetizing. So I sold the business and moved down to Poole.
Wow. And I suppose that's just what you're saying is a great thing about the serendipity of business, isn't it? Is sometimes you go on a journey and you've got to keep your eyes wide open and have a cup of coffee and have a chat with anybody, and then life takes you somewhere you didn't expect, but it can be a great place all the same. And sometimes you try and plan things to the nth degree, and that's and if you get that fixed mindset, that never happens, and you become disappointed.
That's it. I mean, I always, people ask you, like, when you set up a business, like, what's your end game? Do you want to exit? What's it all about? And so, my view on it is that if you're successful, you've got options. There's loads of different choices, and and even when things are going badly, it's like, I've only got one choice. That's probably not true. I think it is all about options, and that's why I like entrepreneurism. You create things and see where it takes you.
And what have they done with the Peppersmith brand since? How's the journey gone?
Since I left.
Did you stay at all?
I stayed for a year.
Okay.
And that's a discussion maybe for another time about, when you leave a business in terms of if they want you to stay or not. And it amazes me how lots of acquirers want the founder or founders to stay even though when there's no guarantee that relationship's going to be good or bad. We just don't know. So I said
it's always challenging one way or another.
My view on it was like, I'll give you a year, and if we've got a great relationship and it's the right thing for both of us, let's continue. Why not? But if it's not, let's make sure we've both got the opportunity to have a new plan. And so I got to the 12 months. It was just the right thing. I mean, the business was, I guess, taking a slightly different direction. As you'd expect of a new owner.
Yeah.
That's
what you do. That's what they do. And it's their right to do that, having bought it, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you, as a founder, if you expect, a different story, if you expect things to be done in your own way, then you should definitely not have sold it. Anyway, so I stayed for a year, and the brand's doing okay. I mean, the pandemic really hit it. I mean, we'll talk a bit about direct to consumer. I guess direct to consumer was a big part of the pandemic for most brands. Buying stuff off the internet. Peppersmith did a lot of direct to consumer, but its core market was still sort of impulse sales at the till.
I know the till sales.
Yeah. So during that first 6 months or a year, it really got hit hard. So I think it's still recovering out of that, but it's still, you can still find it in Sainsbury's and Waitrose, etc., etc. And I see some of the branded stuff that's going on. It's always quite interesting to see, what someone else is doing with it. But so I hope it'll be around for a long time. Yeah.
Good. Last question on your own journey before we get into some of the sort of direct to consumer stuff is, looking back now, is there anything you'd do differently? Or what was there's probably lots of things, but what's the one key thing you might have done differently on your journey with Peppersmith?
I think you can only have regrets if you think you made a bad decision at the time. In hindsight, you think, maybe I could,
I think hindsight only kicks you in the teeth, but hindsight's good, isn't it? I don't think you can live with regrets in any way, shape or form, because you make decisions at the moment for the best intentions. But so with hindsight, is there anything you think you might have done differently?
I think maybe I would have done things a little bit differently with funding. Maybe just try to raise some more money
at an earlier stage,
and that maybe would have given us a bit more momentum. We struggled as a brand in the very early days that we only had one product. It was a great product, and lots of people bought it, but it was only one product. So that's always going to limit your ability to scale. So I think maybe we would have done something different there. That's it. But I'm really proud of what we did. I mean, we did a lot. As you said, with not a lot, and we've still got a brand that lots of people like, and still make great products. It's still around. And I went on my journey. I learned a lot at Innocent. I learned even more. Doing it for myself at Peppersmith. So it's great. So I have. Maybe there was one or two small things we did differently, but overall there was no real howlers.
No, nothing. And something definitely, Mike, to be proud of. So. But you are now, you mentioned it, you're writing a book. It launches, I think, in May. Direct to Consumer Playbook, it's called, isn't it?
Yes. So
tell us a bit about the book.
Yeah, the book's out, and we're recording this at the start of April, so I've got about 4 weeks to go. Getting exciting. So the book came out of what we were doing at Peppersmith. So at Peppersmith, our core customers, and this is where the brand was really set up for, was the supermarkets, the health food shops, the coffee shops, the convenience stores. You buy stuff in bricks and mortar. But we always did, right from the very beginning, we had our own little web shop. And the reason at the beginning we had our own little web shop is because we wanted to give anyone who's interested access to the brand. Building distribution in retail takes a long time. But people, there are people out there who hear about you and want to buy the products. So it's like, okay, let's make sure it's available. And we used to do it once a week. We used to have a pack up on a Friday and take the stuff down to the post office. All very, very homespun. But it worked. But over the years, we started just doing more and more. I mean, I guess e-commerce, direct to consumer picked up a bit more pace. And we were one of the first products launched on Amazon when they started selling food. And we also, we did quite well out of Amazon. So it started becoming a bigger and bigger thing for our business. And also at the same time, dealing with the retailers just got harder and harder. I mean, this is no surprise to anyone, but retailers are not what they were 20 years ago because they're not making the same money that they were. So, and e-commerce is a big part of that. So, the amount of money that the likes of Sainsbury's and Tesco could make, is very different nowadays. And what that means, as a brand owner, is that you just get less opportunities. They have smaller teams, they're more risk averse. It's just harder to get brands onto shelf. And so, while this change was happening, we were finding it harder and harder to deal. Even the customers that we're with, we'd been with Sainsbury's since 2011, but we couldn't even get a meeting with them, even though we were we're a supplier.
Established brand.
Yeah, what do we do? We want to do some more. I couldn't even at the meeting, so that was hugely frustrating. So because you had this barrier between you and the consumer, but whereas we saw, we have direct to consumer, we don't have to worry about retailers. We can just do what we want when we want. And
preserve our margin and
all of that. Well, we'll come back to margin.
Okay, well, make a note of that.
Margins, it's D2C doesn't always mean big margins. But it was just an opportunity to serve more customers in the way that we wanted to. So I got really quite excited and quite into it. And also down the road from us, there was Grays.
Okay.
Grays, who did the snack boxes originally through the post and now are huge in supermarkets as well, which is an interesting one. And I just saw what they were doing. I was like, they're just doing so much better than us by doing things differently. I want to do what they're doing.
Learn from them.
Yeah, learn from them. So I wanted to just do more and more D2C, and we did. And we built up about between 25% and 30% of our business was from internet sales. High proportion of sales from confectionery, from a product that you normally buy one little box of, a little pack of at a time. So we were selling cases. And the reason we could do that as a brand is because of these functional health benefits. So if you really understood it, if you know one of our core consumers, it's like, oh, actually, I want this on a daily basis. So I'm prepared to buy in bulk. And that's why
I want to be able to source it and know I've got it, and
that's why it worked. But the thing I realised at the time, this was sort of 2014, 2015. I was like, right, strategically, let's do more direct to consumer. Not quite sure how to do it, and I started talking amongst my peer group, so all the other brand owners and founders that I knew who in food and drink. I said, okay, are you doing any D2C? Some were, some were not, and the ones that were, I was like, well, what are you doing? What are you putting your money into? How do you do it? What's the important thing to do? And they had a few ideas, and I had, we shared a lot of good ideas at the time, but it was just very apparent to me that we were all learning on the job.
It was such a new thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but there was such a new thing, and when I want to learn things, I like to pick up a book, and for years it's like, I want to buy the book that tells brands how to do D2C. And this book just didn't exist. All the time I needed it, it didn't exist. And then when I sold Peppersmith, it still didn't exist. And then because I sold Peppersmith and moved away, I was like, well, I've actually got some time. And so it's like, look, no one's written this book. I really think it's an important book to write because lots of people need it.
Absolutely.
No one else is going to write it. I guess that's my responsibility.
This is me now. It's on my shoulders.
Yeah, and that's how I felt. And and some of my motivation for writing this book, apart from I thought it'd be a fun adventure to write a book, something new to do. It's because I think it's really needed, and no one's done it. So what I've done over the last 2 years, I've just interviewed sort of the founders of the best D2C brands that I know, the likes of Bloom and Wild and Grays and Towels and Huel and All Plants, and got managed to interview one of the founders of Casper over in the States. So all these fantastic brands who've done a great job on D2C. What I did, I did what you just did for the last 20 minutes, which is to find out the backstory. Which is the interesting bit. And then, but also from that, in terms of, how has this brand come into being? Why did you do what you did? Out of that, pick out the things that sort of led them to success. Because, there's strategic choices, whether, what technology platform they invested in, how big a customer service team, did they outsource? Was it in-house? How they manage their pricing?
And is there some common themes that come through from those brands that you've talked to?
Yeah, there are lots of common themes. I mean, and is it in the other thing I found, even while I was writing the book, how much the direct consumer landscape was changing. The rules were changing, even as I was writing this thing, which especially during the pandemic. But the commonalities between them all. I mean, first of all, they've all got good products. The products have to solve a problem. You've got
they've got to stand out, I suppose, in terms of their peer group as well, in terms of whatever sector they're in.
It's got to do a job better than what else is available. And they also got great brands in terms of communicating why this product is better, and also really importantly what the brand stands for. As a brand, this is what we stand for. This is what we believe in, and what direct to consumer enables you to do is connect with like-minded individuals. It's like, I believe in protecting the environment, or running really fast, or having nice things every Tuesday, whatever it is. You can just find those people and connect to them. So they do that really well, but also incredibly smart ambitious and hardworking founders who just run really good businesses.
Yeah.
They again, all the things that I learned about, in terms of, the things you consider when you're founding, whether it's your cost of goods or your cost of people, your cost of infrastructure, how you get the word out, marketing, how you sell, and what the prices are, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They do it all. And they do it, and the ones have successful businesses do it all well. I mean, they're all sort of big businesses, not the only people in the business, but you just get a founder who.
I was going to say, do you think one of the common things is they've got a passionate founder that drives that brand in the early years, even if over time their influence steps down?
Yeah, and just about all the brands that I interviewed, the founders want to solve a problem.
Yeah,
they're not in it to make money.
No.
A lot of them have. They've done really well.
Yeah, as a consequence,
that's the side effect of solving a problem for a lot of people really well.
Yeah,
and that's what they do. And that's what being an entrepreneur is about.
Yeah.
It's not about having your own business and getting rich. It's about finding new ways to do things.
Yeah. And having a passion for what you do.
And you have to have and the reason you have to have a passion for it is because it's bloody hard.
It's tough. Yeah. Focus, passion and belief will get you there, won't it? But there'll be some tough times along the way. And when you look at this D2C landscape now, you can look at some of the pricing strategies, can't you? Because some of them are subscription based. Some of them are just relying on ad hoc returning customer base. Some of them are trying to attract new customers all the time. Have you got a kind of preference if you're starting a D2C brand on kind of the pricing model or the business model?
Oh, look, if you can do subscription, that's great because you've got customers who are locked in and coming back again and again and again. The problem with subscription is that not all products, or even hardly any products, are now you want on a regular time basis. I mean, you get brands like Who Gives a Crap, toilet rolls, and that's sort of a regular subscription. But all of them have the magic button where you can pause or reschedule because you just don't know what you want. So there's only a few products where subscription really works. So the rest of them is like, I'm going to serve a customer, but when they want it, because this is what serving customers about getting a product to them in the most efficient, easy way.
Yes.
And sometimes subscription really works well. Other times it's like I don't want a subscription for that, and end up you actually resenting the brand. It's like I've wasted money.
I've stockpiled my loo rolls.
Yeah, I've wasted money on product that I don't need right now. Yeah. Therefore, I've lost a bit of love and a bit of trust in you. So,
that's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, so that's really bad for loyalty and trust. So, I think it depends on the product. So, subscription is great if there's a real need for it.
Yeah.
If not, pricing is important, and it comes back to what we were saying before about margin. So everyone has this belief that margin is win-win. Cut out the middleman, cut out the retailer, and then you're going to make more money, and the consumer's going to pay less. And isn't that great? It actually really rarely works that way because it takes a lot of resources to actually get a product from one brand to one person. Yeah. If you think about that retail model, you deliver one product to one entity and they deliver it to lots and lots of different people. That's the efficiency. But now you're doing it's actually one-to-one and you have to pay to get the product from A to B. Yeah. And it's not only like the transport, it's the packing it up and it's the labeling and dealing with the orders and all of this stuff.
Returns and
and mistakes and all and it just takes a lot of energy, effort, money, and that means that can really eat your margin. And the other thing as well is that if you've got a really efficient margin model where you can price lower because you're D2C, you're not going to be the only one doing that for long.
No.
And this is what happened to Casper in the States. They had this fantastic business with brilliant product, great branding, really good attitude to customer service, and then other companies thought, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Why don't we start doing that? And they were just all of a sudden within a year they were overrun by competitors.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah, those barriers to entry are quite small at times, aren't they? Depending on your product and D2C, because you're not having to get into the retailer and be stocked, means that actually the barriers to entry are even smaller.
Which is fantastic. For me as like a brand, someone
as an entrepreneur, who
wants to create
things.
To have and before you had the resellers were really the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
They decide what's put on the shelf or not, and then what gets in the consumer's hands. With D2C, you remove that barrier. However, it means that you've got to do so much more in terms of having a great product and also making sure that you can serve the customers well. Because customer, you have to build the trust.
Yeah.
If you're in the supermarket shelves, there's been a lot of legwork already done for you in terms of, it's obviously this is made to a good standard. It's got a brand I can trust. I know if I have a problem with it, I can go back to the retailer or the brand. You're sort of well looked after. But when you go on the internet, it's like, ooh, that looks good, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, we've all had those moments of, well, I want to buy this, but do I feel confident enough?
And this is what Amazon do really well. I mean, Amazon stock a lot of items. Obviously, they clearly have some quality control there, but it's maybe not as good as you want it to be. Maybe not as rigorous. But what they do, Amazon, if you have a problem, as a consumer, they're going to take care of it for you.
So we've talked a little bit about the fact that Peppersmith had mixed routes to market. So if you were advising a sort of startup brand at the moment that was looking to go purely D2C, at what point would you might think actually you need some other sort of market strategies? You might need to be going retail or wholesale. I mean, are you a believer purely now in D2C, or would you say a blended approach is better?
I think a blended approach is probably a necessity.
Okay.
And this
is a firm view.
And there's lots of different reasons for that. I mean, first and foremost, it's about the ability to scale. D2C is great, but what happens, especially in the UK, is that UK brands see what's going on in the States, and they think, oh, that's a good idea. They're doing well. Why don't I do what they're doing in the UK? And so they sort of build the brand. The product can be as good, but what's not the same is the size of the market.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it's like, ooh, we've hit a bit of a ceiling at maybe 500,000 sales or £1 million, which sounds a lot of money. But if you're trying to support a team to do all the things you need to do to run your business, it's actually not big enough.
Yeah.
So it's like, ooh, we've got a problem here. We can't support the business by having a pure play D2C model. So then it's like, oh, can we do retail? The problem or the challenge is, a lot of D2C brands are set up around being D2C.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always translate into what a retailer wants or expects. So you have to see, can you get over that hurdle? And then, and what often happens is even though you built a bit of a reputation D2C, if you try and do it too early, the retailer's either not going to take you seriously or put you on shelf, or in fact, you're not ready for retail. Yeah. There's a great story in the book, a company called Sugru, who make this fantastic sort of mold. It's like this. It's moldable plastic, and you fix things with it. It's look it up. It's a brilliant material. You use it at home when something's broken.
Yeah.
And they did really well D2C really quickly, built up a great community. And then they were asked by B&Q, "Can we put you on shelf?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go into retail." And they raised some more money to that, and they had some more debt, and they did some different things. But ultimately, they weren't ready to go into retail because it's a different way of operating, and also especially the B&Q consumer base weren't ready for them.
Okay.
So it just didn't work. So they ended up, spending a lot of money and time on something that didn't work out, and it really hurt the business. There was a happy ending, but I'll let you read the book for that.
Yeah, cool. Well, definitely going to be buying a copy of the book. And we talked about the pandemic, didn't we? And I suppose you could then say, for a better word, the rules. So how do you think the pandemic has changed the rules relating to D2C?
I mean, I think it's just made everyone, if you're a consumer, that you can buy products online.
Yeah.
If you need something, you can get online and buy it, and it can be delivered to your door, maybe even the next day. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think, a lot of consumers who maybe weren't so sure, it just wasn't part of their behaviour, have now switched into, I can buy things online. So I think that's important for D2C. And a lot of brands, the ones what did well during the pandemic, the ones who were able to serve D2C. So any brand that were already set up to do D2C, it was easy. We know how to do this. We'll just do more of it. But what you had an awful lot of brands scrambling to try and set up.
Find a Shopify account and set it up.
Whether it's a website or how do we, the warehouse, how do we label this? Who delivers it? All of the stuff. They were like, oh, they were way behind. And some of them caught up and did it well. Others are still not doing it so well. But I think the pandemic's been really important for D2C in terms of it is now a viable way of serving your customers for most categories and brands. But what has obviously changed, and this is, it always surprised me, where hopefully things are going back to more normal. I mean, what is the new normal? We'll see how it all pans out. But people are now going back to the shops. They're out and about. which means that, D2C is a choice, not a necessity.
Yes.
So brands that are thinking, oh, D2C is the future, this is the way we're going to sell all our products, that's not true.
Okay.
So it's about, where is that balance?
Where's that blend again, and where's that mix, and where do you need to put your resource, I suppose?
But I think the pandemic really moved on D2C, and most brands, my view is that even though not all products are suited for D2C, food and drink's a classic one. Yeah, most people were still going to buy the vast majority of sort of food and drink from supermarket outlets. It could be digital like Ocado or in the shop. That's just the way it is. However, that saying, I think all brands should have an element of D2C, even because it's a really important sales channel for them. But even if it's not that, what it does allow you to do is connect directly to your consumers.
Brand development.
So it's brand development, and your consumers. You connect directly to the ones who are going to give you most love and loyalty. Yeah. They're your super fans, but also what they tell you is what they want from you. What do you need to change? Are your products up to scratch?
Yeah.
Is your packaging doing a job? What can you do more of? Oh, can you do? We really like this. Can you do more of that?
Yeah.
You get to find that out instantly. I mean, I had a great quote from Hugh Thomas, who's the CEO of Ugly Drinks, and he was saying, they sell canned drinks D2C and in the supermarkets, and in fact 90% of the sales are still in the supermarkets, mainly in the US. Okay. And he said to me, we still do D2C because not only is it a great way of connecting with customers, we just learn so much. He said we can learn more in a week D2C than we could in a year in the shops. Just because the feedback, is that much more rapid.
Yeah, it's there, and you are talking directly with your customers. Where do you think it's going to go? If you had your crystal ball, is there a place where you think it's going to go? Like,
I mean, D2C. I mean, D2C is here to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people, it will change, and hopefully brands will get better at it. The rules change. I mean, what's happened with D2C over the last 10 years is because it's got these low barriers of entry, there's just more competition. So it's really, really hard to stand out as a brand, and you have to do, from a marketing perspective, you have to do more and more and more to, get people to pay you attention. And also, because of this competition, what's happened, back in the early days, the way you did D2C is that you put ads on social media, probably on Facebook. Yeah. And if the cost of that ad was less than the profit you would make from the customer that you got from that ad, you just spend as much as you possibly could on those ads, and that was just the rules. It's like
basic economics, I suppose.
Oh, was it Oliver Bridge and Cornerstone? He said to me back in the day, it was like free money.
Okay.
He said I wanted to mortgage my house and remortgage my house to put all the money back into this because it was just like if you put one in, you got two out. That was a great machine, but it didn't last. And what happened was, as there was more and more competition from new challenger brands, but also from the big old-fashioned brands who never used to do this sort of stuff, thinking, oh, people don't watch TV anymore. We need to be on Facebook and Instagram. They started putting their dollars and pounds into these accounts, and also at the same time, Facebook or Meta, as they're called now. They thought, we've got something that's really valuable. We can charge a bit more for this. And to put all those things together and over time, and it means the cost now of buying an advert on those platforms is so expensive. And what it means for brands is actually you can't just buy those customers and make a profit. Well, not many brands anyway, via that mechanism. So you have to do so much more to build brands. And what will happen as well is because, it's all about brand building and getting out there and showing your product to people. You probably have to do more in real life as well, away from digital. And whether that's events or pop-ups or even, getting into retailers. Brands are going to have to do more of that because, D2C is just another channel.
And it's a new channel, a relatively new channel for most businesses, where if we go back 10 years, there was niche businesses operating D2C very well.
Niche businesses operated D2C very well and became huge businesses very quickly. But now, it's... and the other thing with D2C, with all the competition, you need a lot of skill to get it right. There are a lot of elements to think about.
Wow. So you would also say to a startup in that D2C world, you need investment because you need the expertise and brands on board?
Really, I mean, the investment is about marketing. To actually be able to make an impact. I mean, but you will find some products who won't need that because what they've got, if they can make a product no one else is and serve a particular niche, and they can find that niche via the internet. They don't need to spend lots of money. In again the book, there's a company called Hyatt Denim who make really high quality jeans out in Wales. Great story. They don't spend that much money on advertising at all, because what they do, they spend such a long time just being masters of what they do. See, if you've heard of jeans, you're going to go to them and they're going to find you because you're interested in the same thing as you are. They do this fantastic newsletter where they never talk about jeans. And it's all about, connecting the spirit of what they do with who you are, and they will find ways to find you, and you will find ways to find them.
And then you connect,
and then you connect, and that is so different from seeing an ad on Facebook saying 30% off.
Yeah, definitely. But around that, do you think there's a lot talked about these days, isn't there, about a brand with purpose and a brand for good, and I suppose the other way is, brands that are disruptors into the market. Do you think you have to have one of those three things to sort of succeed?
I think you have to have disruption. I mean, this is about entrepreneurialism, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got to do something different.
Yeah.
If you're not disrupting, you're doing the same. And if you're doing the same, what's the point?
Yeah.
You're
into a mass market at that point.
You might fail by doing something different because what you're doing is actually not wanted, or there's not any value in it. But you're going to fail if you do the alternative as well, which is doing the same as everyone else, because there's more better funded, more capable people already doing that.
Yeah.
So that's not you.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to disrupt.
Yeah.
And that's great. Yeah, this is what I love about entrepreneurialism. It's always a new solutions. So yes, but in terms of having a purpose, yes, you have to have a purpose. What that purpose is, I mean, that's down to you.
Yeah.
maybe it's like the old school, like, I'm going to make as much money as possible. And that's okay. But what you will find is actually for most consumers, because especially D2C, you buy more into the brand.
You want to connect with that
brand.
And
what is this brand into? And if
you
you see actually they're a really selfish brand. They're not doing a lot for me. People are more attracted to brands who care more.
Yeah.
And what D2C does, it just opens up that possibility. I mean, D2C brands are not the first people who are actually, are brands with purpose. And you look at, Innocent, a great one. They've, been doing it for a long time. Before them, Body Shop.
Yes.
And then Patagonia. These were brands that all did, a really good job before D2C was a thing, in terms of having a brand with purpose that gave more than just making profits from whatever they sold. But what D2C has done is a couple of things. It makes it easy for brands to do things differently. So it's like, actually, I'm a business and I stand for something new.
Yeah.
They can ask the world.
Yeah.
Do you see value in that? And the great thing,
do you see the world like me?
See the world like me, and the great thing is a lot of people do. So they have the opportunity to try these things. I mean, a good example is Who Gives a Crap, the toilet roll company.
Yeah.
So they're in the book, and their story was, so back in 2011, I think, Simon, the Australian founder, he had this idea. So I'm going to make toilet roll, and I'm going to take half the profits of this toilet roll company to give back to water and sanitation projects. Really good idea.
Absolutely.
So he had this idea, this purpose. He came up with this brand, found the manufacturer, so I can make toilet roll, and this is what my business is going to do. He took his brand and product to the supermarkets in Australia and said, look, this is what I'm going to do. Will you put me on shelf? And the supermarkets, when he finally got the meeting with the buyer, they faffed around. And ultimately, I think they said, we really like your idea, but it's too risky.
Oh.
We're not sure it's going to sell. So it's like, I've got a problem here. But at the same time, a bit like with Peppersmith, they'd already started selling things on the internet.
Yeah.
And they just noticed, actually, we're finding it really hard to get into retailers. D2C is going really well. Right. Why don't we just do D2C? And they built their business from that. And it's great. So without D2C, you just I guess D2C gives you more opportunities. But what will come out of D2C? The best ideas, the best products, and the best businesses are still going to win out. Just because you're on D2C doesn't mean you're going to do well.
Definitely. So Mike, you're sort of exited Peppersmith now with all of that experience. You're clearly still very entrepreneurial. You have written a book which launches in May. What's next for Mike?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been trying to work this out for a little while. I mean, after Peppersmith, I needed a bit of not a break. I needed a change.
Yeah.
And so for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been, as well as been writing the book, I also consult for other sort of startups, challenger brands, maybe in the consumer goods space. But if anyone needs any help, I can certainly have a look and see if I can help you. So I've been doing a lot of that, and that's been fun for me, getting involved with lots of different businesses. And then we had the book, and now the book. It feels like the book's coming to an end, but it's not. It's just about to come out. So
you're gonna have to put some marketing and some
time
so
there's a bit of work to be done around just sharing what I've been busy with. So with the book, but then after that, I am looking at different ideas.
Okay.
Probably with a D2C element. I've learned quite a lot. So
use that knowledge.
I could use that knowledge, but it's just trying to work out what is the next thing. I mean, I love building businesses and bringing out products. So I think I've got a bit more of that in me yet.
I can see that. This is the first time we've met, but I can see that energy and that passion for product and D2C just oozing out of you, Mike. So
watch this space.
Watch this space. Brilliant. So the book is called Direct to Consumer Playbook. Where can people get a copy of the book in May, and where can they connect with you, Mike, if they want to learn more about you and your story and your journey?
Yeah, so the direct-to-consumer playbook's available in all good bookshops from May, but it's all you can also pre-order it now. So if you go into Amazon or any, the Waterstones or Foils or whatever, they've all bookshop.org.
Okay.
I could shout. They support independent booksellers, so it's a great way to buy the book. So just search the direct-to-consumer playbook and you'll find it, and you can order it. And we'll see how it goes. So it launches in a month, and then. Aside from that, I love connecting with people. So I've got our consultancy website is www.stevens.earth. .earth, yeah. So that's also my wife, who's a sustainability consultant. She's on there as well. So between us, I generally look after sort of business and scaling, and she looks after sustainability. So we have this consultancy.
It's a good combination.
Yeah, and. Yeah, it works well. And then you can also find me on Twitter, Open Mike Stevens, and the normal channel. LinkedIn, look me up. Yes, it shouldn't be that hard to find me.
Brilliant. Mike, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned lots today in that kind of 3/4 of an hour we've been talking. So I'm really looking forward to reading the book, and it's been great to have you as a guest on the podcast.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.